Here are my top 25 zombie movies of all time, ranked using critic ratings, user ratings, box office totals, and published rankings from various movie rating websites. Number 25, Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. A pair of strangers encounter a new agricultural technology that reanimates the dead and sets off a gory wave of violence and zombie attacks. Known as The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue in the UK and Let Sleeping Corpses Lie in the US. This was filmed in Italy by a Spanish director, so it actually has two other titles. Number 24, Night of the Comet. Two sisters face cannibal zombies and evil scientists after discovering they may be the only survivors of a comet that wiped out most of humanity. A classic 80s Teen Valley Girls vs. Zombies movie that appears on 50% of the published lists I found on the internet. Number 23, Planet Terror. A small town is overrun by a deadly virus that turns people into zombies, and survivors must fight to save themselves and others. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, released as a grindhouse double feature alongside Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. Number 22, Night of the Creeps. Teenagers must fight against killer zombies infected by experimental alien brain parasites. An 80s comedy about naive frat guys fighting alien zombies. Number 21, Paranorman. A misunderstood boy takes on ghosts, zombies, and grown-ups to save his town from a centuries-old curse. A stop-motion animation. This is a top 3 highest-grossing movie on the list. Number 20, The Girl with All the Gifts. A scientist and a teacher embark on a journey with a girl who might be the cure for an infection that turned humanity into flesh-eating zombies. Based on a novel where the zombies are actually called hungries. Number 19, Zombie. A group of people on a tropical island discover that the dead are rising from their graves and eating the living. This is an Italian movie with the original title Zombie 2. There is no Zombie 1, but this movie was named after George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead that was released in Italy under the title Zombie. Number 18, Warm Bodies. A young zombie falls in love with a human survivor and seeks to protect her from the dangers of the undead world. This zombie-human love story appears in 50% of the published lists. It's a top 3 highest grossing movie and a top 3 cinema score with a B+. Number 17, 28 Weeks Later. A father attempts to reunite with his children after the outbreak of a highly contagious virus that turned most of the population into flesh-eating zombies. A sequel to 28 Days Later. This is a top 3 on Metacritic, also known as Metascore. Number 16, I Walked with a Zombie. A nurse travels to a Caribbean island to care for the wife of a plantation owner who may or may not be a zombie. This is the oldest movie on my list, but not the first zombie movie ever. 1932's White Zombie is often cited as the first zombie movie. Number 15, Little Monsters. A washed-up musician and a kindergarten teacher team up to protect a class of children during a zombie outbreak at a petting zoo. This movie has a 100% according to Rotten Tomato audiences, and it appears on 61% of the lists. Number 14, Day of the Dead. During a zombie outbreak, a group of scientists and soldiers clash while living in an underground bunker. This is the third movie in George A. Romero's Of the Dead film series. Number 13, One Cut of the Dead. A low-budget film crew shooting a zombie movie takes an unexpected turn, revealing events that are part of a larger production. This is the highest-rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes, Letterboxd, and the average overall ratings. It's also a top 3 on Metacritic and IMDb, but only appears on 50% of the published lists. Number 12, Dead Alive. A hapless young man must protect his town and his love interest from a zombie outbreak caused by an infected rat monkey. Directed by Peter Jackson. The original title in New Zealand was Brain Dead, but it's known as Dead Alive in the US. Number 11, World War Z. A former United Nations investigator travels the world to try and stop the outbreak of a rapidly spreading zombie pandemic, based on the best-selling novel about a worldwide pandemic and really fast zombies. This is the highest grossing movie on the list, and it's a top 3 from CinemaScore. Number 10, Dawn of the Dead. A group of survivors hold up in a shopping mall in the midst of a zombie epidemic, where they must fend off hordes of undead and deal with conflicts within the group. A 2004 remake of the 1978 George A. Romero classic. Director Zack Snyder also recently released another zombie movie, Army of the Dead, and wrote its prequel, Army of Thieves, for Netflix. Number 9, Wreck. A reporter and her cameraman get trapped in a quarantined building with terrifying secrets. A Spanish movie with a few sequels that appears on 89% of the lists. Is it Wreck or Record? Number 8, The Return of the Living Dead. A group of employees accidentally release a toxic gas that reanimates the dead and turns them into flesh-eating zombies. Based on the novel written by John Russo, who created the original story for Night of the Living Dead alongside George A. Romero. Russo retained the rights for future films with the phrase Living Dead in the title. Romero released all of his future movies with Of the Dead in the title. Number 7. Reanimator. A series of ghoulish experiments get out of hand after a medical student invents a serum to revive dead bodies. Based on a short story about a mad scientist. This is one of the first dark humor zombie films. This also has a sequel called Bride of Reanimator. Number 6. Zombieland. A group of survivors fight zombies and search for safety while creating their own rules for survival. This appears in 94% of the list with an average 12.3 rating. It's the highest on CinemaScore with an A-, and it has a combined $220 million at the box office if you count both Zombieland and the sequel Zombieland Double Tap. Number 5. 28 Days Later. A man wakes up from a coma to find that London has been evacuated due to a highly contagious virus that turns people into vicious zombies. This movie appears on 89% of the published lists with an average 8.9 rating, and director Danny Boyle is working on a third movie in the series 28 months later. Number 4. Train to Busan. A group of passengers struggle to survive while trapped in a speeding train during a zombie outbreak. This movie appears on 100% of the lists. It's the highest rated on Just Watch, and it's a top 3 Rotten Tomatoes and TMDb. A South Korean movie, and there are a few other South Korean zombie movies on Netflix. Train to Busan Peninsula, All of Us Are Dead, and #Alive. Number 3. Dawn of the Dead. A group of people hide in a shopping mall during a zombie apocalypse, where they must defend themselves from undead while coping with their own fears and tensions. This is the highest average rating for any movie on the list, at 6.4, but it only appears on 89% of the lists. It's also the highest rated on Letterboxd and top 3 on IMDb and tomato audiences. This is also the second George A. Romero movie in his Of the Dead series. Number 2. Shaun of the Dead. A man tries to save his girlfriend and mother from a zombie outbreak during an ordinary day in London. Shaun of the Dead appears on 100% of the published lists. It was highest rated on IMDb, Letterboxd, and Just Watch, and it's a top 3 by tomato audiences and the total number of votes. And before we get to number 1, please subscribe for more videos like this, or leave a comment if I missed something important. Number 1. Night of the Living Dead. A group of people are trapped in a farmhouse in Pennsylvania as they fend off a growing horde of zombies. This was George A. Romero's first zombie movie. It appears on all of the published lists I found. It's highest rated on Metacritic and Just Watch, and it's a top 3 IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, TMDb, and average ranking. Thanks for watching. I'll leave some links in the description for my complete list of over 100 zombie movies, plus the various websites I used for data for the rankings.